Hi guys, here for the Chapter 9 review. This chapter is pretty much an English test or like a history test because it involves no calculations, no calculator whatsoever. Like usual, Mr. Farmer did an absolutely awful job explaining this and probably confused a lot of people, but you know what, at least he's consistently bad. Okay, it's better than being good sometimes than bad sometimes. So, let's quickly go over. These are the types of samples you have. This is the kind of bias you can get. And these are some other definitions that we had in the homework that could be confusing if you didn't look at the definition in the book, which is kind of boring. So the first kind of sample you have is census. And a census is basically, easiestly explained, is say I own a motel. Census is asking all of the customers in the motel. Every person who comes through that door is getting asked the question. If they don't respond, if they don't get to buy anything, they can't do anything. Okay? You're forcing them to respond. It's a census. That's the important difference about that. You can ask everyone you want, but if it's voluntary to respond, that would classify it as a voluntary sample. Census, you are required to respond. Simple random sample is basically, say this board was just full of names, and I'm like, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Just pick a couple, just a whole bunch of names. That's basically what a simple random sample is. Roll the die, just kind of leave it to chance kind of thing. A stratified sample is easier explained in another example, so we're going to cover that in a second. Same thing with the cluster and the multi-stage. The systematic would be like at this motel, I ask every 7th customer about the service, how they liked it. So every 7th person who walks through the door, I ask them, and they give me a response. And if they don't give me a response, I don't give them a card at the motel. So that's systematic, is this person. It's, you can write y equals mx plus b. You can write that kind of formula because it's like 7x plus the starting person. The voluntary sample is pretty much, you ask them and you say, do you want to respond to my survey? This is like the internet survey where they write, at the left is like, please take survey now, that kind of thing. Your choice to respond. That has issues. And a convenience sample is basically saying, I have a whole bunch of people in this room, let's ask them all right now and never have to do it again. It's for your convenience, as the name is given. So for these that we didn't cover, stratified, cluster, and multi-stage, this is better. Say I own 4 La Quinta Inns. Okay, 4 of them. Beautiful, business opportunity here. A stratified sample is simply saying we're going to separate all 4. Instead of saying all of my customers as a whole, I'm saying the customers in each of these La Quintas have different things. And a stratified sample would be like, I ask 4 people in each location to see how the service was. That's a stratified. You're separating them into groups and then asking a certain number from each group. Okay? A cluster sample is saying, okay, here are my 4 groups. I'm only going to ask everybody, like a census, every single person in here. Not voluntary. I am going to ask them, and if they don't respond, they do not get the entry key, they do not get to stay at the hotel. And I just do it at this one, and that should represent all hotels. That's a cluster sample, a single cluster out of the whole. Okay? And a multi-stage sample is simply breaking it down into 2 stages or more. So first, with this example, I have all these La Quintas, so I stratify. I cut them up. Then I say, let me do a systematic sample, and every 7th person at every hotel, I ask, do you like the service or not? So you see, I first stratified, I cut them into 4 groups, then I said 7th person here, 7th person here, 7th person here, 7th person here. I asked all 7th people, so I did a systematic and a stratified sample, all in one. One of the kind of issues you have with doing this is the bias. Voluntary response bias only comes from, voluntary sample. That's basically saying the people who respond only feel like strongly, like, are you going to do that, voluntary response sample thing on the side of, Amazon, like, do you like our service? Like when Wikipedia is like, donate $1 here. Who just clicks on the X button? Like 95% of us, no one actually reads about it. Basically, only the people who actually give a damn a lot will respond. So you run into an issue because most of the people probably don't even give a shit. So maybe most of the people who care because they want it to get better. Or maybe they think it's, they feel very strongly. So you run into that kind of problem. The undercoverage bias, this can pretty much happen in all of these if it's not done correctly. And basically undercoverage is saying there are some people who are not going to be represented. It's a fact. It's going to happen. I mean, imagine you have a population in these hotels of, say, 10,000 people last month, and I only asked 1,000 from all these hotels. As you can imagine, there's 9,000 people I'm not asking questions, so they're undercovered. Maybe a lot of them never really, disagreed. Maybe a lot of them hated the La Quintas. The next one is non-response. It's kind of the same. It's basically if you give a voluntary sample, people just won't respond. With other samples, you have to remember that they're kind of mixed in with voluntary, a lot of these samples, especially in the textbook. Well, not even in the textbook, just the way he described them in class. They mixed in saying that here's a census, then you have you can respond if you want. Non-response is basically saying that the people who didn't respond are undercovered, and you have response bias saying the same exact thing. People who respond might be inclined to have a certain opinion. Now let's talk about these 3 definitions here. Population, population of interest, and sample frame. So population, for this example, would be all people in the United States. That doesn't make sense, right? Think of it this way. This test I did here, I need to represent who? Okay, that's kind of weird with this example. Say I asked everyone at this motel. If you have, say, this motel, out of all the customers, you only, you're looking at questions. But what do you want to say in your results? You want to say out of my customers, this is how many liked it? No, you want to say out of the entire population of this area, this is how many people liked my services, liked my motel. It's especially big with politics. Like, imagine for, some random candidate for, freaking Senate, okay? They ask, did you vote for this candidate? Do you like this candidate? They ask a question like that. They only ask maybe 150 people about it. And they say this represents all of the population. So that is the population, is who does this represent? What does this sample represent? The population of interest are the people you're looking for the response. So that with the political example, you're basically looking for the people who say, I like this candidate. That is your population of interest. Basically, what is the population that answers the way you want them to. And the sample frame is who you ask. Say if it's a systematic sample, the sample frame would be every 7th person at these La Quintas. Say it's a cluster sample, it would be the sample frame is all the customers at this one. The sample frame is who you asked. So remember, population is who is this representing? Population of interest is what are the people what is the response you're looking for? How many people gave you that response? And the sample frame is simply who you asked. Okay? This test involves no calculations, just all these definitions. You need to know the bias, and you need to know these 3 definitions. At least these were on the homework. These are important, and just remember the names of these. These aren't too hard. Census, all the people, simple random, sample. Just pick a whole bunch of random ones, roll the die. Stratified, cut it up into pieces first. Cluster, pick one of those pieces. Multi-stage, do 2 steps or more, combine these. Systematic, ask every blank person, so every 10th person, every 100th person, just, you can put like a 7x. Imagine it that way. Voluntary response, volunteers. And convenience sample is like, here are the people in this area, let me just ask them. Or say I'm standing outside of a Dollar Tree saying, did you like the store? Instead of going out and finding people, I'm just waiting for people to come up to me. Okay? It's a pretty easy test here, pretty easy quiz. On the test on Thursday, it's going to be pretty easy because it's just combining this with plug and chug, which you can do with the 4-function calculator. So, good luck guys. Bye.